Hey there, crafters! I'm Cindy, my husband is Chris. Welcome to CNC DIY Factory. Today we have a video all about frames and birds. The frames that I'm holding here are now available on our CNCDIYFactory.com website. These frames were designed especially for makers and creators. There are 10 different sizes. There are several different bundles. There's 4 mixed size bundles and then 10 single size bundles. They are designed specifically for the makers because the frame comes away from the backer board for ease of crafting. But for now, let's jump into the video and see what I frames. In Project 1, we are using our smallest maker's frame, a 4.5 by 4.5 inch frame. These frames are designed to have the backer board come out of the frame so that it's easier to create your design. These frames are solid wood and are great for staining or painting. I am painting the backer board with DIY's White Swan. For the frame, I'm going to start with using Kissing Booth by DIY Paint. I will be applying 1 coat of this Kissing Booth across the entire frame and on the back side of that backer board. Once the paint is dry, I will give it a light sanding. I want to create a chippy look to this frame, so I am using a wax candle. It's actually an emergency candle that I got at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to rub the candle wax across the entire frame. Once I've finished applying the candle wax, I'm going to come in with DIY's Petticoat Pink, and I'm going to put 1 coat of Petticoat Pink across the entire frame, being careful not to disturb the wax that I have just applied to the frame. After the Petticoat Pink has dried, and you can use a hairdryer or a heat gun, just be careful not to melt the wax. We're going to go ahead and take the paint scraper and we're going to scrape off the paint. Wherever the wax was originally laid down, the paint won't stick, so it's going to chip it off and look weathered and old. This process is a little messy, so be sure you have a paper towel or something underneath of your project to catch all of those shavings. When working with distressed looks, layers is the key. So here I am going to layer on my Crackle stamp by IOD along with the Stone Gray ink. I start by inking up my stamp, and then I'm going to apply the stamp randomly all across the entire frame. DIY clay-based paint must be sealed, so you can either use a water-based brush-on sealer or a spray sealer or a wax. I'm going to be using the DIY clear wax. To create the authentic distressed look, I'm going to be going back over that clear wax with the DIY dark wax. The clear wax acts as a buffer to the paint so it doesn't absorb all of the dark colors of the dark wax, or a white wax if you choose to use that. And it allows you to wipe back the excess of the dark wax, creating that distressed look. For this project, I'll be using recycled decoupage paper called Recycled Catalog. Once I've picked out the image that I want to use, I'll take my water pen and I'll draw a water line around the edge of the backer board and tear out the piece that I want to use. To decoupage this paper to the backer board, I'll be using the DIY liquid patina and my mister bottle. I'll lay down a thin layer of the liquid patina, mist my paper with my water mister, and then go over the top with my brush, smoothing it down. And I will continue these steps until my decoupage paper is completely adhered to my backer board. Once the decoupage paper is completely dry, and it needs to be dry, otherwise you're going to tear it when you sand it, I'll take my finger sander and in a downward angle, I will sand off the excess paper. I'm going to be applying some transfers to this backer board, and I'm using the Essential Stencil Vintage Birds transfer set. Once I've selected the images that I want to use, I will cut them out, making sure that the white backer board is still adhered to the transfer. Once you take that white backer piece off, the transfer is exposed and it can stick to anything. I designed these frames for this instance exactly because the frame is in my way now. So I'm going to have to take that frame away from the backer board so that I can lay my pieces out on that backer board without the frame being in my way. And I love that aspect of this frame. As I'm designing the layout of this transfer, I'm on a bit of a struggle bus because I want that bird tail behind the branch, but I want the bird feet on the branch. So I'm just working with the transfers. I'm trimming them here and there. I'm trimming the backer piece so that I can lift up that tail, pull off the backer piece, and apply that to the backer board and then put the branch over top of it. I'll let you watch me struggle here just a little bit. Funny thing about struggling, it really wasn't that hard. In fact, I didn't need to do any of that at all, because if I would have just laid them down one on top of the other as they were in whole, then I could have just put the little branch on top of the tail and you never would have noticed. But it turned out just fine. Once I finally got the bird and the branch down on the board, I am going to apply a stencil. This is also from Essential Stencil and it says Hope. I'm going to be using my DIY in Gravel Road. When applying a stencil, you want to use the dry brush method. So you load up your brush and then you remove most of the paint on a paper towel before applying it to your stencil. This allows the paint to move over the stencil smoothly and you won't have bleed through. When working with transfers, you need to seal them as well as the DIY paint. So I'm using the clear wax by DIY to seal this transfer and paint. Once I've applied the clear wax, I'm going to go around the edge with the dark wax by DIY to give it a little bit of dimension and grunge to match the frame. And here is the final look. I think it turned out beautiful. Tell me what you think in the comments. Do you like the chippy, grungy look? For project 2, we're going to be using our 6x6 maker's frame. We'll be taking the backer board out, and I'm going to start off with the Minwax water-based stain in aged barrel, and I'm going to stain the entire frame and the back part of that backer board. The Minwax water-based stains can be found at Lowe's or Menards and tinted at the paint counter to whatever color you prefer. They have many to choose from. I'm using a staining sponge that I purchased on Amazon and my water mister. To help the stain glide across the top of the wood, spritz the wood with a little bit of water. This really helps to move that stain around. While the stain is still wet, you can take a towel, a shop rag or a lint-free towel, and wipe back the excess to expose the wood grain. The Minwax water-based stain dries very quickly, so as soon as it's dry, I'm going to flip that backer board over and I'm going to paint the backer board with my DIY White Swan. To create a little more interest on my frame, I'm going to be using an essential stencil, that brick pattern. And I'm going to stencil with my White Swan in a dry brush method this brick pattern all across the back, the sides, and the front of this frame. This stencil makes it easy to line up where you left off so that you can continue the pattern across the frame. If you guessed that I'll be decoupaging decoupage tissue paper on this, you guessed right. I'll be using this bird's masterboard that was in Sonnet's Maker's Box from June of 2024. This was her very first Maker's Box. I will line up where I want the backer board on the masterboard, and then I will just use my fingers to create a crease and then trim it out around that piece. When working on multiple projects at the same time, I keep my brushes in a Ziploc bag in order to reuse them and they won't dry out. I'll be using my DIY liquid patina and my mister bottle to decoupage the bird's masterboard to the backer board. Once I have my paper lined up exactly where I want it, I'll once again use a starter strip, lay down a thin layer of the liquid patina, mist my paper, and smooth it over with my brush. And continue this process until I have the entire decoupage paper adhered to my backer board. Once the decoupage paper and the liquid patina are completely dry, I will take my finger sander and in a downward motion, sand off the excess paper all around the edges. For the next part of this process, we're going to be using the Pentart Fine Line Crackle Varnish System. This is a two-component varnish system. There is a component 1, which is the white, and there is a component 2, which is the amber. We're going to apply the white to the entire surface of our board. Now make sure before you apply this component 1 that you have sealed your project with something. It needs to have a sealant on there before you apply this component 1. You can either use a blow dryer or a heat gun to speed up the process of drying, but component 1 needs to be completely dry. Be careful if you're using a heat gun, you don't want to scorch it. Once component 1 is completely dry, we'll apply the component 2. This is an amber color. It's kind of like the consistency of honey and it's sticky. Don't touch this, you'll leave your fingerprint and it will be there forever. Be sure you're using a clean, dry paintbrush for both component 1 and component 2. After using each component, I suggest you wash your brush immediately, otherwise it will be ruined. You won't be able to get it to come out. This Pentart Fine Line Crackle Varnish System is a solvent-based product. Something that people don't talk much about is that you have to seal this with a solvent-based varnish. So we will be using a clear varnish by Pentart in matte, and that is a solvent-based sealer. Once component 2 is completely dry, and again you can use a hair dryer or a heat gun, just don't scorch it to accelerate the drying process. You can see that there are the fine line crackles in there, but to accentuate those, we're going to use the antique paste and take a paintbrush and the paste and just work it into all of the crackles and then gently rub away the excess. Please note, with solvent-based products, you cannot mix in water-based products until you have sealed it with a solvent-based sealer. The Pentart varnish is a solvent-based sealer, and it cannot be cleaned up with soap and water. In order to clean your paintbrush, you'll have to use like a mineral spirits or linseed oil or whatever solvent-based cleaner you have. Otherwise, your paintbrush will be ruined and you'll have to throw it away. Once we've finished with the fine line crackle and sealing that, we're going to move on to the frame. We did use DIY paint, so this needs to be sealed. I'm going to use the DIY clear wax to seal this, and then I'm going to follow it up with the DIY dark wax to make it look dark and grungy. After I've applied the dark wax, I'm going to come back in and add some dark and decrepit dust or dirt. And it's going to create some more grungy dirtiness look to the frame. I think it adds a really nice element. Let me know in the comments what you think of adding this decrepit dust. Now it's time to put the frame together. I'm going to be using this frame tacker. I bought this on Amazon, and I will put the link in the description below this video. And now for the final look. I think this turned out beautiful. I love the fine line crackle. It is a solvent-based product, but I think the elements that it brings to this design is gorgeous. For project 3, we'll be using our 9x12 maker's frame. We will start by separating the frame from the backer, and we're going to paint the entire frame and the back side of the backer with the Fusion Mineral paint in blue pine. This is a beautiful blue color, and I will be applying 2 coats of this Fusion Mineral paint. Once the paint is completely dry, I'm going to take my 220 sanding sponge and just give it a light sanding. My next step is to paint the front side of that backer board with our DIY in white swan. If you find that your paintbrush is dragging across the surface, spritz it with a little bit of water and it will help your paint to flow smoothly across your surface. I bought this decoupage tissue paper probably 2 years ago, and I think I bought it on Zazzle, and I can't find it now. But I absolutely love the 2 birds in the nest, and I love the round image behind it. So I'm going to use this and decoupage this down to the backer board of this frame. I'm going to line up the paper exactly where I want it, fold back one edge of it, and lay down a thin layer of my liquid patina, spritz my paper, and smooth it out with my paintbrush. and I'll continue this process to decoupage this paper down to the backer board until it is completely adhered. If you are finding that your tissue paper is not laying down smoothly, you can use your hand to gently smooth out the wrinkles, or you can use a balled up piece of plastic wrap. The plastic wrap is probably better to use than your hand because your hand will create friction and the plastic wrap will not, and this will help smooth out any wrinkles. Once the decoupage tissue paper is completely dry, I'll take my finger sander and in a downward motion, I will sand off the excess paper to leave a nice clean edge. Now it's time to put the frame together. I'm going to use my frame tacker, line it up, and squeeze the handle. It acts just like a stapler. I will put one tack in each of the corners and then another tack in the center of each of the sides. Since we used the Fusion Mineral paint, which has a built-in sealer, this frame is complete at this point, but I like to use the DIY clear wax just to give it a little extra protection, and I like the matte finish that it brings to my projects. So I will apply one coat of the DIY clear wax to the entire frame and the image, front and back. And this project is complete. The blue pine pairs beautifully with the eggs in the nest, and I just love this project. Please tell me what you think in the comments. For our fourth and final project today, we will be using our 11x7 maker's frame. I'll separate the backer from the frame, and you might be happy to know I'm not using white swan. I'm using crinoline from DIY. I will paint the backer board with one coat of this crinoline by DIY. The reason I'm using this crinoline is because I want the decoupage paper that I'm going to put on this to look like weathered tapestry material. So I need that color to be a little more muted. Once I've finished painting the crinoline on the backer board, I'm going to move on to painting the entire frame. I'll be using Fusion Mineral paint in Chestnut Mare. This is a gorgeous terracotta color. I love using this. I got this in the Sonnet Maker's box, and I will be painting the front and back and all sides of the frame with this color. I will be applying 2 coats. Once the Fusion Mineral paint in Chestnut Mare has dried, I will be taking the DIY Pennies from Heaven Copper Patina and my little makeup brush, and I'll be applying that over the entire frame and the backer board where I've just applied the chestnut mare. My goal is to create a copper-like finish, and I'm going to create a patina over top of this to where it looks like it has been made out of copper and it's got some old wear and tear and weathering on it. It's going to look gorgeous. I love how that copper patina plays off of the chestnut mare. It's like they were made just specifically for each other. Once the copper patina has dried, I'm going to take my finger sander and I'm going to give this a light sanding. I want to bring back just a little bit of the wood grain and the wood look underneath of both the patina and the paint along the edges. Next, we're going to bring out the birds. This is called Bundle of Birds. It's a decoupage tissue paper, and I bought this from Piglet's Closet about a year or so ago. Love this paper. It mimics what the IOD sisters did with their brocante transfer a couple years ago. Once I find my placement of where I want the birds to set on my board, I'll take my water pen and I'll trim around the edges. And next we will take our liquid patina, fold back the top portion of the decoupage tissue paper, lay down a thin layer of the patina, spritz our paper, lay it back down, and smooth it out with our brush. And we'll continue this process all across the board. Once the liquid patina has dried, I'm going to take an essential stencil and my copper patina along with my little makeup brush, and I'm going to stencil on a little piece of this design. Because the backer board is separate from the frame, I'm allowed to lay my stencil flat and get a nice, clean, stenciled impression. Once I've finished stenciling with the copper patina, I'm going to lay that stencil back down exactly where it was, and I'm going to take the DIY Shipwrecked finishing wax. This is a gorgeous turquoise wax, and it's going to give me exactly the patina that I'm looking for this piece. The Fusion Mineral Paint has a built-in sealer. The copper patina is also a sealer, so this frame really doesn't need to be sealed again. However, I want to continue to patina this frame, so I'm going to use the DIY clear wax. Once I've applied the clear wax, I'm going to come back in with the Shipwrecked finishing wax, and I'm going to add just a slight amount to the edges of the frame and then wipe back the excess. Then I'm going to bring in the Dark and Decrepit dust, and I am going to dust the areas where I had just applied that Shipwrecked finishing wax. I will continue to add more wax and dust and use my finger to smooth it in and blend it out as needed all the way around the frame. Once I have finished creating the patina all around the frame, it is time to put this together. With these maker's frames, you have the option of gluing the frame and the backer board together, or in this case, I'm going to use this frame tacker. I will have the link to this in the description box below. And here is the finished product. It's hard to pick a favorite, but I think this one is going to be mine. I would love to hear which product was your favorite. Please leave me a comment below and let me know. And here is the final reveal of all 4 projects that we worked on today. These frames can be found on our website at www.cncdiyfactory.com. They come in bundles, or they can be sold separately as individual frames. It's all up to you. These are awesome products for makers. We have craft fairs and vendor markets and booths and retail shops that these could be perfect for making your mixed media art or displaying your art journaling pages. These frames will go wherever your creativity will lead you. If you find that there is a size that you are needing that we do not have on our website, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to make you one that is suited to your specific needs. Well, I've had so much fun creating with these 4 frames today. If you liked what you saw and I've inspired you, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please hit that notification bell so you don't miss another video. All of these frames can be found on the cncdiyfactory.com website. Let's all practice random acts of crafting and make something great together. Bye for now.